Thanks so much for joining us today. I'm Jessica Mitchell. I'm an editor at Mother Earth News, and I have here with me Mike Lang, who will introduce himself in a moment. But first of all, I'd just like to welcome you to this video. We are outside right now enjoying the beautiful fall weather in Kansas. We're on this wonderful piece of property that Mike owns, and today we're going to be talking about woodlot maintenance, specifically how to prepare and chop and stack firewood. So we have here Echo products. So thank you again to Echo for sponsoring this video. We're very excited to use some of these products today. So we have them all lined up here, and we're going to be just exploring some of these products today, and just a big thank you to them. So today, as our roadmap, we're going to be going through kind of 3 basic steps when it comes to woodlot maintenance. First of all, we're going to be talking about choosing your firewood, or how to really just start preparing to chop firewood. Next, we'll just go into the actual mechanics of how to chop it, and obviously talking about some safety precautions as well with that. And then we'll go into the best practices for stacking your firewood, and we'll also talk about a couple little points along the way. So without further ado, I'd like to hand it over to Mike, who'll tell us a little bit about himself, and then we'll get started.
Well, I really don't like talking about myself, but I am a horticulturist, arborist by trade. But I really enjoy Mother Earth News and the magazine group that, you know, gives us some ideas on sustainability and, you know, getting back to earth living, do it yourself. And fortunately, my wife works for the company, so I do get involved and do get to see the fairs, and it's really great.
Connection. So when it comes to choosing firewood for woodlot maintenance, what are some of the first things you want to start with in terms of, like, how do you start? What do you choose? How do you go about doing that?
Well, it all comes down to what's available to you.
Okay.
You know, you take, this is Osage orange. It's a great wood to burn. It's 32 BTUs per green cord, which is one of the highest that we have available here in Kansas. But you may not have Osage orange. You may have cottonwood, and cottonwood is half the BTU per cord, so you're going to have to cut twice as much.
Okay.
To heat your home. Also, you know, a lot of people cut damaged trees on their properties, rather than, you know, just going out and cutting down a good one, or limb up trees. Again, it goes back to what's available. If you're in the western states, you're probably burning conifers.
Okay.
That's what's available.
Sure, gotcha.
So,
now, have you noticed a big difference between, you had mentioned, you know, dead trees versus ones that are still growing? Is there a difference when you choose? Yeah,
you have to be kind of careful. When you choose a dead tree, they can be very dangerous to cut down because you don't know what the decay is like on the inside. So, you know, it may not fall like you're planning on it. And also, it's pretty much a waste to cut down a tree that's rotten in the middle. I mean, does you no good other than to get it off your property.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, some people plant tree lots.
Oh, just specifically for
so
trees.
You know, you could plant an acre of trees on 10-foot centers, and what you'd have 435 trees.
Yeah, that would be a lot of wood.
Yeah, but you know, as they grow and start touching, you have to thin them out. But you know, that is an option to do on if you have vacant property to start some trees. Yeah. You know, you also need to think about the growth rate of trees. Osage orange is fairly slow. Cottonwood, it's fast. So, you know, nobody wants to burn cottonwood, but it's half the BTUs, but it's twice as fast growing.
Gotcha. Got it. Yeah, so if you were to cut something down that wasn't dead, so talking about, you know, Osage orange, are you looking for just mainly the visual, or is it about really telling the age of the tree?
Well, it doesn't really matter the age of the tree. Granted, you don't want to cut down 6-inch trees because you don't get much wood out of it. But if you have a property with timber on it, you may want to go in and pick some that aren't as nice shaped or structurally sound, and take those out and let the other ones fill out and grow. Or you may just want to take out undesirable trees, a willow or something that you don't want to burn at all.
Got it. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So in your personal experience, what have you tended to do? Is it just really based on that specific situation when you're choosing your firewood?
Well, you know, if you have an enclosed stove, you can burn pretty much anything. But if you have an open fireplace, you're not going to want to burn Osage orange or locust because it sparks. You know, so it really just depends what your situation is. You know, I'll burn pretty much anything. You know, a lot of people say, you know, like a soft maple will leave more ash than what you put in to start with, but it still puts off heat.
Okay, yeah, and if it works, it works. Right. That's great. And in terms of more additional resources when it comes to woodlot maintenance, just putting a plug in here while we have a pause in our conversation, we are going to be listing some more resources if you'd like to learn more about woodlot maintenance and firewood in our show notes, and so be sure to check that out. All right. Well, I think there's some pretty good questions on how to start. Is there any additional considerations you would want to include when you're starting off with firewood? Maybe time to cut. You know, it's easier. I'm not saying it's the best to cut it in the fall, winter when the sap is down. Okay. Say if you cut on this tree in March, cut a limb off, it would be oozing sap, which is kind of plugs up your chainsaws and gets all over. It's a mess. But, so if you're able to avoid that, that's the best situation. That's right. And you know, also a lot of people worry about replanting. Well, if you cut down this hedge tree and don't treat the trunk, it's going to send up new sprouts. Yeah. So after a year, you could pick one main leader, and it has a jump start because it has this tremendous root system. Yeah. So, you know, you don't always want to treat the stumps. Got it. I think I've seen pictures of trees in England where they've cut firewood off of them for hundreds of years, and they're, you know, they're as big around as sequoias, but you know, they're just little trees that grew up around the side. That's so interesting, and I think it really speaks to being a responsible visitor to whatever forest or tree area that you're visiting, not to just kind of come in and plow things over, but really being mindful of how you approach a tree and cut it down. Yeah, and you still want your property to look nice, so are we going to just clear cut one side of it, or how about pick one out here and there? Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I like that. All right, so here we are now, and we are ready to start talking about chopping our firewood. Not quite ready to do it yet. There's a lot of important steps you have to consider and talk about beforehand. So I'm going to turn it over to Mike again in just a moment, but just to kind of give you a little bit of summary, what we're going to be talking about next is we're going to go over some safety precautions as well as kind of the best practices before you start physically chopping your firewood. We have a couple different products here from Echo. We're going to highlight some of the chainsaws we're going to talk about, as well as just how to stay safe when you are chopping your firewood. So first of all, Mike, what tree are we chopping up today? We're going to cut American elm that died on the property. Okay. So we're going to reuse it. Nice. So obviously we skipped the part where we actually like chop the tree down. Though it would be probably pretty convenient to just have them lying around like this. Yes, it would. Cool. All right. So how about, do you want to first start talking about some of the supplies you'll need and some of the safety precautions going into it? You know, off the bat, the first thing is your safety apparel. And you're holding what is a very good product from Echo. The face mask
keeps your eyes from getting any chips or anything in it. Also protects against kickback of the chainsaw.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
And the hard hat protects if a limb would hit you.
I see we also
and
have
earmuffs.
Nice.
Those are really great. For someone that's not used to running chainsaw, I would recommend having one of those, especially if you're cutting in brushy areas.
Nice. Yeah, this is great. It's just really durable. Let me try this out.
And they're more comfortable than what they look like.
I can barely hear you, so this must be doing its job.
And if you run a chainsaw for even 5 minutes, you can cause hearing damage because the decibels are that loud.
Wow.
Besides the head, face, ears, a good idea is to have a pair of chaps. These are made so if you would happen to come across your leg with the chainsaw, it will snag up and stop the chain.
Oh, wow.
When you're running full speed cutting, that chain's running about 65 feet per second. So if you look like on this chainsaw, your teeth are cutting probably a 1/4 inch deep, and they're about 1.5 inches apart. You can calculate how long it would take to get into the bone.
Yeah.
Don't want to sound, scare anybody off, but
no, but you just have to be smart about it.
That's exactly right. The other thing is you need to pick the correct chainsaw for the job. We have 2 really nice units here. That one below would be more of a bucking, felling saw for bigger logs, and this one would be more of a limbing saw, where once you have the log on the ground, you come along and limb off the smaller branches.
So for our purposes today, because we don't have any limbs, we're going to be using the larger one.
That's right. They've already been limbed off. Another small piece of equipment that is handy when felling is a wedge. On this size tree, you can't really use them, but on a thicker tree, once you get your chain in past where this will go, and you're cutting, it keeps your chain from binding up if that tree would lean back a little bit.
Yeah.
It just saves a lot of time and headache.
Small but essential.
Yeah. The other thing about choosing your equipment is the size of bar. This one has a 24-inch bar, which is bigger than what we need for this job.
Okay.
I would recommend, if you're cutting wood about this size, a 16-inch bar, which can go on this saw.
Okay.
But other than that, should we go through the safety features of the saw?
I think so. I think that's a great idea, just for everyone to kind of know.
Okay. First off, this is your chain brake. And you should always, unfortunately, all saws are made for right-handed people.
Oh, interesting.
Well, that's just the way it works out. But you will always run with your left hand on the bar, and you start with your foot on the handle and pull with your right hand.
Okay.
This is, it's centrifugal force is what it is. So if you would happen to have a kickback, it automatically engages that chain brake.
Okay.
But to explain kickback a little bit, this would be from here out would be what you call the danger zone. So if you get sawing and you hit about right there, that saw could come back and it just comes back on you.
Okay. So in terms of the things you want to keep in mind for when cutting before we go into the actual fluid motion of doing it. What are some things to keep in mind in terms of maybe stance, aim, where you're going to be working on the tree, and how you're going to be using the machine? Okay,
say you were taking the limbs off this tree. Mm-hmm. You'd want to stand on the opposite side of the log.
Okay.
When cutting, you always want to be off to the side so that the bar is off to the side of your head.
Okay.
So if you would have the kickback situation, it could come on over.
Okay.
You never want to cut above your shoulders, and you'll be tempted to, but if you just look at physics and somebody can push your arms down, you get up here and you have no control.
Yeah.
Also, arms bent because you have structurally more power like that. Knees bent.
Okay. Nothing locked.
Yes, because once you're locked, the centrifugal force, if you'd have a problem, will just tip you.
Do you find it also helpful to kind of have your feet a little bit stance apart? Or?
That's a great point. Your stance should be apart so you're solid. You know, I guess it'd be like martial arts or something.
Yeah, to keep it balanced.
Yeah, and one thing I forgot is a good pair of boots, steel-toed even. Sorry.
No sandals?
No sandals. And a pair of gloves. My dexterity doesn't allow me to wear gloves because I can't feel the trigger. So, okay, let's get ready to cut this up for some firewood. I'm going to forego the helmet and face shield because I do have prescription safety glasses. Also, I'll be using a little earplugs, more comfortable for me.
Well, that was a great job, Mike. Thanks so much for demonstrating that for us. And we have a nice little wood pile now.
No problem. I'd sure like to have that saw.
Yeah, it seemed like it worked
a lot of power.
Awesome. Great. Okay, well, we now have a very nice little pile of chopped firewood. And so we're moving on to our next subject, which is on stacking and storing your firewood. So we kind of just put this little pile together. And so, Mike, maybe you want to talk a little bit about best practices for stacking firewood, if there are, if it's more of just like where you store it or different things you want to keep in mind when it's time to stack them.
Well, I think the most important thing is you want to get it up off the soil, whether it be a pallet or blocks or something underneath so it doesn't allow the insects and rot with ground contact. Mm-hmm. The other thing is out of the rain and the snow.
Okay.
It'd be great if everybody could store it in their house, but there's a lot of insects that come out of the wood.
Right. We were just looking at some of the insects that were just around here, and even kind of some in some of the bark and whatever.
Right, and I don't think everybody has their strategy to stack. I mean, some people do the beautiful crossed ends to hold their stack up, which I admire. Some people put it in a pile. Whatever works for you, as long as you can keep it out of the weather, so it's ready to burn on a cold winter night.
Yeah. So you had mentioned to me earlier that you tend to store your firewood outside. So if you're storing it outside, is there any great ways to really just protect it from weather, or just kind of leaving it out in the open and just waiting for it to dry or something?
Well, if you have a lean-to off of a building, put it underneath that. If not, some people will just tarp it.
Oh, yeah.
But you do want the air movement through it,
okay.
So it will cure, I guess is the correct word. You don't want to let it get too dry because a lot of your BTUs are gone. Okay. But you don't want it wet either.
Right, just a nice balance in between that. Now, we had touched a little bit in the beginning about when it comes to BTUs and everything, and I know you wanted to maybe talk a little bit more about that in terms of how much firewood to heat your home and all that stuff.
Yeah, you could calculate how much firewood you need to heat your home by simply doing square footage insulation, but also just about every state, I think every state has a land grant institution that has extension service. Okay. So, like here, Kansas State University has the BTUs of the wood that are found in Kansas, which I referenced earlier. It's going to be different on the East Coast where there's a lot of hard maples. It's going to be different on the West Coast where there's a lot of conifers. So, just check with them. They're a great resource. Yeah,
that's awesome. Especially just to have it in each state to make it much more individualized.
That's right, because every state is different. I mean, even in our state, from one side to the other is extremely different.
That is very true. Awesome. So to follow up on some of that, best practices, keeping it off the ground, making sure it doesn't get, too much airflow or something like that. Is there any signs if someone were to walk up to their, pile, and would they be able to tell just from a glance, like if the firewood's just no good anymore?
Well, if it was out in the rain, it could eventually get a little, I call it pithy, starts rotting internally. Okay. But if it's out of the rain, what you're doing is losing weight. And, where a nice piece of hedge would really put off a lot of heat if it's seasoned correctly. If it was 5-10 years old, it just burned like paper.
Are there any other points that you wanted to touch on in terms of stacking firewood?
Just that, logs this size would probably be split in half. Oh, okay. To burn. Split wood is much easier to stack than round wood because kind of like a wheel.
Well, that is all we have for today for Woodlot Maintenance Week. So once again, I'm Jessica, and this was Mike here to join us for chopping firewood. And another big thank you to our sponsors, Echo, for providing us with some great products that we got to try out today. It looks like Mike had a lot of fun with the chainsaw.
Most definitely.
Yeah. And thank you again for joining us today. We have some resources listed in the show notes if you want to learn more about woodlot maintenance and chopping firewood. Also, feel free to use the hashtag Woodlot Maintenance Week because that is what week we are in. And also feel free to send us any questions you may have concerning this video, concerning woodlot maintenance, chopping firewood. We'd love to hear your questions and also hear your stories on your best practices for chopping firewood. So that's all we have for today. Thank you again. And I am Jessica, and this was Mike. And enjoy learning how to do woodlot maintenance, safety precautions, chopping firewood, and enjoying all of the benefits that come with it. We'll see you guys next time.